So when England and France decided to link their two countries with a 32-mile rail tunnel under the English Channel, designers had to satisfy the public that passengers would never find themselves unable to escape.
It was important to the basic concept of the Channel Tunnel that it be viewed as being very safe. There are 3 tubes that are part of the English Channel Tunnel project. 2 of the tubes are full-sized and will accommodate rail traffic. In between those 2 train tunnels is a service tunnel. It served as a pilot tunnel to find out what the underground conditions were, and in operation it served as a part of the rapid exit system.
A year after it opened in 1994, the Channel Tunnel's unique design was put to the test. 31 people were trapped by a fire which broke out in a train coming from France. No one was killed because everyone was able to escape through the service tunnel.
The 3-tunnel concept is very good. I think that a number of people like myself believe we must never again build a single-tube tunnel.
The fire was only one of many problems to plague the Channel Tunnel, or Chunnel as it was nicknamed. The project would be consumed by cost overruns, delays, and safety fears. And it would also be shadowed by centuries of distrust between the English and the French. The two countries had been arguing for years whether a Channel Tunnel was even a good idea. Over time, many fanciful schemes were proposed. And though a real tunnel would be a boon to commerce, the British remained skeptical. They viewed the channel as their moat, protecting them from invasion. But by the 1980s, England was finally ready to take the gamble. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher supported a closer union with Europe and in 1986 signed an agreement with French President Mitterrand to build a tunnel under the English Channel. For the engineers involved, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The tunnel would be the longest underwater tunnel ever built, and at the time, the most expensive construction project ever conceived.
It's quite a daunting sort of feeling to suddenly realize, hang on, we've actually got this concession now, we've actually got to drive the tunnel.
The rivalry between the two countries was turned into a friendly competition. Each would start from its side of the channel, with bragging rights going to the team that got to the middle first. The engineers predicted it would take only 3 years to dig the tubes. Their optimism was based on tests that revealed a dense layer of soft chalk that would be easy for their huge boring machines to excavate.
In the 1950s, tunnel boring machines as a concept came to the fore. These were fully automated and shielded pieces of equipment that could excavate full diameter tunnels. And behind the TBM, or the tunnel boring machine, was a whole array of supporting equipment.
People work in these massive tunnel-making factories night and day. As the TBM moves forward, discs on the cutter head grind into the tunnel face and shave off the rock. Then conveyor belts send the excavated rock out the back of the TBM. Several of the TBMs used on the tunnel were as long as 2 football fields, capable of boring 250 feet a day. Brunel's first tunneling shield managed a scant 4 inches. Armed with sophisticated ground surveys and their powerful TBMs, the channel tunnelers anticipated smooth sailing.
It was expected that good rock conditions will be available on the British side and difficult rock conditions on the French side. Consequently, TBMs were designed with this situation in mind. And guess what? Murphy's Law. Precisely the opposite has happened.
The initial surveys were wrong. The chalk layer on the British side was weak. Water began pouring in, and their TBMs weren't designed to work in watery conditions. The British were stopped in their tracks.
We didn't expect it to be as bad as it was. But I think there's a lovely story, that comes back with one of our geologists who was seen getting in a man-riding car and asked whether there was any truth in the rumour that we'd hit water. Well, she was wearing a mask and snorkel.
Work could not resume until engineers found a way to waterproof their crippled TBMs. They put a protective hood over the machines and injected the ceiling of the leaking tunnel with grout. The fixes helped until they reached a drier layer of chalk and could get back to normal speed. The British were now behind the French, but they were starting to catch up.
There was a real rivalry towards the end, especially as to where they were going to junction, because there was literally each of them would drive until they meet. So it was a question of how many met on English soil and how many met on French soils.
Beside the straight-ahead boring of the tunnels and the placing of concrete lining blocks, the teams also had to create the channel's most ambitious feature, two enormous spaces about a third of the way in from either shore. These caverns, called crossover passages, were designed to keep the channel in continuous operation even during major repairs, so rail traffic would never be subjected to long and costly delays. Here's how they work. Just before the big chambers, the middle tunnel veers to one side, and the rail tunnels merge together, forming the crossover passage. Now, if a section of track in one tube needs repair, a train moving in that tube can cross over to the other side, travel past the work area, and at the second crossover passage, return to its original track. Once this happens, the train going in the opposite direction can proceed safely on through. Crossover passages keep the channel operational 24 hours a day.
Those chambers were the size of some 500 feet in length, 70 feet wide and 50 feet high. To this day, this is a major engineering achievement, and it's the largest underground chamber under the sea.
Although the British would reach the middle first in the spring of 1991, that victory was overshadowed by the much grander perspective of history being made. The breakthrough of all three tubes meant the tunnel under the English Channel had become a reality. For the French and British who'd made it happen, it was a chance to celebrate a physical link between their countries for the first time in human history.
The channel itself has always been a historical bridge. I think, this project is something that's everybody's gone away with a real memory of. Having been here and done this one, what else is there?
Eurostar passenger trains would begin service through the channel in November of 1994. In the first 5 years of operation, trains carried 28 million passengers and 12 million tons of freight. The channel's builders and supporters have declared it a complete success.
Le tunnel sous la Manche, c'est vraiment quelque chose d'unique.
The channel is really something quite unique. And that's not just my opinion because I had the chance to participate in it. We are both very proud to have built it.
Unique pour d'autres points de vue.
And from the British point of view,
l'Angleterre n'est plus une île.
It's very special because Great Britain is no longer an island.
But the channel still has its detractors. They point to its $21 billion price tag, double the original projections. And they question whether this extraordinary piece of engineering will ever pay back its costs.
Building in the underground is a kind of construction which is always going to cost a lot to accomplish, but it is going to last for a very long time. It is going to require much less maintenance and be safer, be less affected by weather than other kinds of construction are. So they are long-term investments.
Well, here's a toast to Mark Brunel and the early tunnel builders. They certainly would have been envious of the technology available to the Chunnel engineers. And this ride on the Eurostar, it's so comfortable you hardly know you're in a tunnel. At 32 miles long, the Chunnel clearly shows that there are very few limits left for the modern tunnel builder. It's simply a matter of will and money. When the Chunnel was built, it was the most expensive engineering project in history, and the naysayers said it would never pay its costs. Well, now, hundreds of trains a day pass through the Chunnel, and they're already talking about building another one.